Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, the 2020 chairperson from the Upper Delaware Council, and I've been a board member since 1989 as a representative from the town of Coshocton in New York. We're here at the Zane Grey Museum, maintained by the National Park Service in Lackawaxen, Pennsylvania. The Upper Delaware Council, or UDC, was established in 1988 to coordinate the implementation and ongoing administration of an adopted 1986 River Management Plan for the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River. We accomplished this through a partnership of federal, state, and local governments working cooperatively with landowners to conserve this special place. As designated by the United States Congress in 1978, this unit of the National Park System encompasses 55,574 acres of land located in 2 states, 5 counties, and 15 New York towns and Pennsylvania townships. The Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River stretches 73.4 miles from the confluence of the east and west branches of the Delaware River at Hancock, downstream to Railroad Bridge number 2 near Mill Rift, Pennsylvania. The northernmost main stem of the 331-mile-long Delaware River is nationally recognized for its free-flowing condition, exceptionally clean water, and its outstanding, remarkable scenic, recreational, ecological, cultural, and geological values. The Upper Delaware was the first model in a national wild and scenic river system to achieve its management through collaborative partnerships. While the National Park Service has jurisdiction on the river and approximately 30 acres of property that it owns, 90% of the acreage remains privately owned. What sets this river management plan apart is the hard-fought commitment to local land use controls and voluntary actions by landowners to protect the Upper Delaware's resources. The Upper Delaware Council, whose membership currently includes 13 of 15 local governments that border along the river, the State of New York, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Delaware River Basin Commission, serves as a driving force to coordinate management among the partners, offer a forum to resolve differences, and agree upon joint actions affecting the river valley and secure enforcement of existing laws and ordinances. The UDC does that through administration of the Land and Water Use Guidelines. Local governments which adopt land use regulations based on the guidelines are deemed to be in substantial conformance. Under a formal cooperative agreement with the Department of Interior's National Park Service, the UDC reviews significant projects, local laws, local plans, and ordinances that are proposed within the river corridor boundaries to make recommendations regarding their conformance with the substance of the Upper Delaware enabling legislation, the River Management Plan, and the Land and Water Use Guidelines. The recently formatted 1988 Project Review Workbook that is the subject of this video outlines the process while providing documents and instructions to assist its end user in submitting the appropriate information to review. The workbook is ultimately intended to facilitate sustainable development and responsible land use practices, which will help to preserve our rural character, pristine environment, and excellent water quality. All of these values in turn enhance the Upper Delaware region's ecological and economic vitality, since only by protecting the land do we protect the water. In 2019, the National Park Service recorded 215,537 visitors to the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River, who spent $9.6 million in recreational dollars, supported 102 tourism-oriented jobs, and generated $11.6 million in economic output to its gateway communities. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this process. Protection of the resources we all value is a responsibility of all levels of government, and all individuals. Once again, I'm Larry Richardson, Chairman of the Upper Delaware Council. I wish to thank you for taking the time to learn the process, how to properly use this guide, and protect the beautiful Delaware River.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Claster, Community and Land Use Planner at Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River. I'm excited to present this new version of the Upper Delaware Council and National Park Service's Project Review Workbook 2.0. This guide will help Upper Delaware Council and National Park Service staff to review laws, comprehensive plans, ordinances, challenges and variances, and proposed development projects within the Upper Delaware corridor. Thank you very much for joining us. In this part of the training, we will introduce you to the new workbook and give you a preview of its contents. We'll start by giving you some background on the workbook and what it's used for. The Project Review Workbook version 2.0 is a revision of the 1988 workbook that UDC developed to create consistent procedures for substantial conformance reviews. The 1988 workbook has been in use up until this new release. No procedures have been added. The checklists follow the language of the Land and Water Use Guidelines with clarifications to make them easier to use and understand. Version 2.0 is streamlined and user-friendly. It was written with the towns and townships in mind, but will also be used by UDC and NPS to complete the reviews. It's functional. Fillable PDF forms and an online submission process have been created for UDC's website. The Project Review Workbook isn't just for projects. It's also for reviewing local comprehensive plans, zoning laws and ordinances, and other ordinances that affect the Upper Delaware corridor, as well as variances and zoning challenges. This will take some of the guesswork out of the process by giving your staff, board members, residents, and consultants a better understanding of how substantial conformance determinations are made. This version can help towns and townships save time and money because it explains the substantial conformance process. The review process outlined in the workbook forms the basis for UDC's evaluation of whether a town or township is in substantial conformance status. Local governments which adopt land use regulations based on the guidelines are deemed to be in substantial conformance. What is substantial conformance? Conformance with respect to the list of compatible, conditional, and incompatible land uses set out in the guidelines and with the substance of each of the principles and objectives set out in the guidelines so as to carry out the intent of the Upper Delaware legislation. Substantial conformance status confers fewer project reviews, only Class 2 projects are reviewed instead of both Class 1 and 2, and protection from the threat of federal use of eminent domain. It's important to note that in order to pass a substantial conformance review, the use or uses allowed within the Upper Delaware corridor must be consistent with the schedule of uses in the Land and Water Use Guidelines, and the document or project must meet every objective against which it is reviewed. Now let's take a look inside the new Project Review Workbook 2.0. Part 1 of the workbook contains a brief overview of the Upper Delaware management structure and review process. Part 2 contains review checklists and forms for understanding whether a review is required for the municipality and performing the reviews for Upper Delaware Council and National Park Service. The appendices include additional tools to help with substantial conformance reviews. Part 1 discusses the purpose of the workbook, the corridor segment classifications, activities to be reviewed, the responsibilities of UDC, NPS, the counties, and the municipalities in the substantial conformance process, and timeframes for the process. It contains a more detailed look at each of the 3 review types: laws, plans, and ordinances, challenges and variances, and significant projects, including a breakdown showing all the steps of the process, both for reviews conducted by UDC for UDC member communities and reviews conducted by NPS for non-member communities. Part 2 contains the cover forms to be submitted by the municipality with their review submittals, as well as forms the municipality can use to understand whether they need to submit a project for review, and forms that UDC and NPS staff will use when conducting the reviews. The appendices contain a supplement to assist with using the schedule of compatible, conditional, and incompatible uses included in the Land and Water Use Guidelines, definitions from the Land and Water Use Guidelines, and a sample schedule of uses worksheet that can be used or modified to help reviewers work on schedule comparisons, as well as additional references and resources, many of which are available online. The guide is also organized by what is reviewed: local laws, plans, and ordinances, zoning maps and amendments, challenges and variances, and projects that meet certain thresholds of development, or what are known as Class 1 and Class 2 projects. The sections are color-coded so that throughout the document, sections with an orange theme pertain to local laws, plans, and ordinances, zoning maps, and amendments. Sections with a blue theme pertain to challenges and variances. And sections with a green theme pertain to significant projects, which are Class 1 and Class 2 projects. To learn more about a specific category of review, search out the color-coded sections in Part 1 and Part 2 of the workbook that pertain to that category. Remember, the River Management Plan and Land and Water Use Guidelines are always available for consultation if you still have additional questions. And the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act and Upper Delaware Act are good sources of information about why these reviews are conducted. Now let's go through the materials that municipalities are requested to submit for substantial conformance review by Upper Delaware Council and the National Park Service. It's important to note that not all of a municipality's land use actions and laws need to be reviewed. Land use actions outside the Upper Delaware corridor and laws, plans, and ordinances not affecting land use within the Upper Delaware corridor are not reviewed. How can you tell if a parcel is in the corridor? The counties have interactive parcel maps that allow searches by address and parcel number. The Upper Delaware boundary can be added to the municipal zoning map. It is available as a GIS shapefile from the National Park Service's IRMA data store. Finally, the Upper Delaware is developing an online GIS tool that will be made available to municipal staff. For reviews of local laws, plans, and ordinances, the documents must be relevant to land use within the Upper Delaware corridor. All zoning laws and ordinances, land development ordinances, including SALDO, and comprehensive plans will be reviewed for consistency with the principles and objectives in the Land and Water Use Guidelines. Other standalone laws and ordinances that could be reviewed include sign ordinance, floodplain ordinance, sewage and septic ordinance, junkyard ordinance, RV park ordinance, and mobile home park ordinance. Zoning maps are reviewed to see whether changes are being proposed to the boundaries of river corridor hamlets and to verify that the Upper Delaware corridor is shown, the map matches what is described in the zoning document, and allowed uses are consistent with the schedule of uses in the land and water use guidelines. No cover form is used with this type of submittal. Municipal staff may email the document to the submittal address provided in the workbook. The sooner UDC is involved, the better. We are happy to attend early work sessions, provide reviews of draft documents, and provide informal consultations during the development of these documents. By obtaining UDC's input on working documents, municipalities can avoid needing to go back to the drawing board at the 11th hour, saving time and consulting fees. Challenges and variances must be in the corridor to be reviewable. The following types of variances are reviewed for consistency with the schedule and the principles and objectives in the land and water use guidelines. Use variances and area variances or dimensional variances, which will involve properties bordering on the river, directly vary the development standards for more than one lot, dwelling unit, or equivalent unit, reduce a development standard by more than 30% to accommodate a project, or be proposed in connection with a Class 2 project. The Council will monitor other variances issued as part of their enforcement oversight process. The form asks for a date, project identification, which could be a name, permit number, etc., a description, which can be brief, the municipality, whether the project is in a scenic, recreational, or hamlet area, whether all structures are 35 feet or less in height, whether any construction is proposed within 100 feet of the mean high water mark of the river, and identification of the project location. It is important to note that if not all identifying features are available, just provide what you have. For example, if you have the address and parcel number or the coordinates for a project location, that is enough. Section, block, and lot number and parcel number refer to the same thing. Section, block, lot is more commonly used in New York State, while parcel number is more commonly used in the Commonwealth. The form also asks for the date the proposal was submitted to the municipality and contact information for the municipal staff member who submitted it. Do not submit contact information for the applicant. Communication should be between the UDC and the municipality. After a municipality submits the challenge or variance with cover form, this checklist is used by UDC and NPS staff to assess whether it requires review. If it requires review, the project review process and forms will be used by staff to review the project for substantial conformance. Significant projects include both Class 1 and Class 2 projects. Projects must be in the corridor to be reviewable. For substantially conforming municipalities, only Class 2 projects are reviewed. For those that do not substantially conform, both Class 1 and Class 2 projects are reviewed. UDC maintains records of whether a community is considered to be in substantial conformance or not, based on prior reviews. No community that does not have an adopted zoning law or zoning ordinance can be considered to be in substantial conformance. Class 1 projects include subdivisions and single-family residential buildings or developments of 5 or more lots or equivalent dwelling units, multifamily residential units, subdivisions involving construction of new roads and other improvements, Non-agricultural or non-residential projects, including new uses and the expansion or change of existing uses outside of hamlets. Projects or developments within the river corridor other than single-family residential subdivisions involving the use of more than 20 acres or clearing for building purposes of more than 10% of a lot or lots on slopes greater than 15% in grade. Subdivisions other than land transfers for lot improvement purposes, involving lots of less than 2 acres in size. Off-premises advertising signs, excluding land posting notices. And projects involving construction or improvements within 100 feet of the high water mark of the river or exceeding 35 feet in height, excluding agricultural and related structures. Class 2 projects include projects subject to conditional use, special use permits, and site plan review procedures under local ordinances, or which, if approved, would take a town out of substantial conformance with the guidelines. Subdivisions of 25 or more lots within the river corridor. River-related recreational use projects. Projects involving stream discharge of sewer effluent or the use of central sewage or water services. And projects involving facilities in the river corridor to be constructed or operated by governmental agencies. The following are generally not reviewed. The parcel on which the project is located is not within the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River Corridor boundary. The project is a single-family home on an existing pre-approved lot. The project is a customary accessory use or structure or other minor improvement, such as a residential fence, deck, driveway, wall, or patio. And the project involves construction or improvements to agricultural and related structures. There are exceptions to this. Other than agricultural projects, all projects are reviewed that are over 35 feet in height or 100 feet or less from the mean high water mark of the Delaware River. Other projects not reviewed include subdivisions of single-family detached dwelling units involving 4 or fewer dwelling units or lots, including all planned phases, not meeting any other criteria that could qualify them as Class 1 or Class 2 projects. No new roads and other improvements. All lots are at least 2 acres in size. Conditional use approval, special use permit, or site plan review are not required. Projects involving construction or improvements to agricultural and related structures. The project does not involve stream discharge of sewage effluent or the use of central sewer and water services. The project does not involve a facility to be constructed or operated by a governmental agency or agencies. Again, all projects must be under 35 feet in height or more than 100 feet from the mean high water mark of the Delaware River. And non-residential developments involving sewage flows equaling an equivalent dwelling unit of 4 or fewer dwelling units, including all planned phases, not meeting any other criteria that could qualify them as Class 1 or Class 2 projects. This is the first page of the project review checklists designed to help walk the municipalities through determining whether a project is reviewable. Additional checklists have been developed to help a municipality determine whether a project is considered Class 1 or Class 2. Projects that do require review, but that are neither Class 1 or Class 2, are considered to be more significant than a Class 2 project. For projects in that category, the questions to guide review of significant projects will be used by UDC or NPS in addition to the standard project review forms. The cover form to be completed by the municipality is very similar to the one used for challenges and variances. The questions asked in the project review forms follow the principles, objectives, and suggested land management strategies found in the Land and Water Use Guidelines. The questions associated with Review Criterion 1 apply to all projects being reviewed. Under Review Criterion 1, projects are reviewed against 13 objectives and the schedule of uses. The objectives seek to limit erosion, control stormwater, limit problems caused by septic systems located on poor soils, provide for setbacks and adequate separation of structures, limit the height of new construction, limit on-site signage, prevent construction of 4-lane roads, and limit density. Review Criterion 2 applies only to off-premises advertising signs, such as billboards and other business signage along roadways and facing the river. This does not apply to signs posted by a business on the property on which the business is located. Under this criterion, projects are reviewed against one objective. Objective 4A seeks to prevent unnecessary sign proliferation, particularly on the riverfront, by limiting off-premises advertising signs. Review Criterion 3 applies only to recreational uses. Under this criterion, projects are reviewed against 4 objectives that locate intensive use recreation outside of scenic river segments, and that provide for orderly development and operations of campgrounds, boat liveries, and all recreational uses. Review Criterion 4 applies to projects constructed or operated by a governmental agency or agencies. This criterion ensures that certain types of development activities are not permitted in the corridor, in addition to those that would be considered incompatible in the schedule of uses. These additional questions are necessary for significant projects which may fall beyond the bounds of the normal procedure employed for reviewing local and minor state and federal projects. This review does not constitute any additional burden. It simply outlines a procedure for examining major projects in a way that identifies significant impacts and allows the UDC and NPS to consider their consistency with the final river management plan. If the project requires a state, federal, or Delaware River Basin Commission permit, action, or agreement, and is therefore not subject to the normal permitting procedures of local municipalities, or the project requires a local permit, but the Land and Water Use Guidelines do not provide sufficient guidance on the nature of the proposed development, then these questions may be used for further project evaluation. The forms included in the workbook are meant to be used by UDC and NPS staff to perform a substantial conformance review. However, these forms can help a municipality and its consultants evaluate a comprehensive plan or zoning ordinance while it is in the process of being developed or amended. Municipal staff, boards, and consultants can use these forms to help evaluate where changes are needed and whether proposed changes would substantially conform. In addition to checking against the principles and objectives, also check against the schedule of uses using the cheat sheets in the workbook's appendices. Here's another sample page from the forms for reviewing laws, plans, and ordinances. It's important to reiterate that in order to pass a substantial conformance review, the uses allowed within the Upper Delaware Corridor must be consistent with the schedule of uses, and the document must meet every objective against which it is reviewed. The schedule of uses cheat sheets can be used to quickly identify if a proposed project should be permitted in a particular corridor classification. They can also be used to determine whether the zoning law or ordinance allows uses within the Upper Delaware Corridor that are not consistent with that classification's treatment in the schedule of compatible, conditional, and incompatible land uses contained in the Land and Water Use Guidelines. Step 1. Identify whether the project occurs in a scenic, recreational, or hamlet area of the corridor. Scenic and recreational areas were designated in the River Management Plan. Hamlets are named in the River Management Plan and their boundaries were determined through the creation of zoning districts by the municipalities. The excerpt from the map above, included in the workbook, shows recreational segments in lighter green and scenic segments in darker green. The boundaries of the hamlet areas don't appear on this map, but on your local zoning map. Hamlets can be commercial or residential in nature. In Callicoon, for example, the hamlet is in those areas designated on the Town of Delaware's zoning map as Callicoon Business and Callicoon Residential. Not all municipalities have designated hamlets in the corridor. Damascus Township, for example, has several hamlets named in the River Management Plan, but has not elected to define them on its zoning map. Therefore, there are only scenic and recreational areas in Damascus Township. Step 2. Use the Schedule of Uses cheat sheets to determine whether the proposed use conforms with its treatment on the schedule. For example, a dentist's office is proposed in the recreational segment of the Upper Delaware Corridor in Damascus Township. The project is being reviewed under the township's conditional use review process. Find the cheat sheet for recreational segments and scan across to the column of appropriate conditional uses. Business and professional offices is in the list of appropriate conditional uses. Step 3. Now check the definition of business and professional office in the definitions from the Land and Water Use Guidelines included in the workbook. The definition includes an office where a medical occupation is practiced. The proposed use conforms with the schedule of compatible, conditional, and incompatible land uses. UDC has improved its website to make it easier for municipalities to understand the review process and submit materials for substantial conformance review. For any additional questions, please contact the Upper Delaware Council for member communities or National Park Service Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River for non-member communities. That concludes our introduction and orientation to the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River Project Review Workbook version 2.0.
Hi, I'm Shannon Salento, and I'm the Resources and Land Use Specialist here at the Upper Delaware Council. Everything you need to understand the substantial conformance review process is available on our website at www.upperdelawarecouncil.org. Here, you'll find all the tools you need, including the workbook, map, and forms. Everything is located under the Project Review tab on the homepage. Click on Project Review, and you'll be brought to the workbook's landing page. Here, you can download the entire Project Review Workbook and map for your reference. Below the workbook, you'll find a series of handy, fillable forms that you'll use to submit a project to the UDC for review. It's best to engage UDC as early as possible in the project review process to allow ample time and valuable input for projects, and these forms are a good place to start. The UDC's Resource and Land Use Specialist will be your primary liaison for the project review process and can assist you along the way to ensure a successful project review. If you're submitting a challenge or variance to be reviewed, you'll select the Section 2 Reviewing Challenges and Variances Cover Form PDF. You'll submit this simple, one-page form along with any other supporting documents or materials about the challenge or variance. As you can see, you'll be asked for basic project information, including location data, river classification, municipal information, and a brief description of the proposed project. If you're submitting a significant project to be reviewed, such as a special use permit, you'll select the Section 3 Forms for Reviewing Significant Projects Cover Form PDF. It should look familiar, since it's very similar to the Challenges and Variances Cover Form. You'll provide the same information as before and additionally indicate whether this is a Class 1 or Class 2 project, which is defined in the workbook. Once you complete the appropriate cover form and gather the necessary accompanying documents, you can submit either electronically to applications@upperdelawarecouncil.org or via mail or in person at the UDC office in Narrowsburg, New York.
My name is Tom Shepstone. I'm pleased to be with you today to talk about the Upper Delaware Land and Water Use Guidelines. These guidelines came about many years ago. They started really when there was talk about taking this beautiful river and making it a national scenic and recreational river. And I'm standing here at 10 Mile River Access. It's a beautiful spot. I've canoed past here before, but there's a lot to this river valley, including the distant lands here to the west, that ridge line. And there's a lot of interest going back to the 1970s, or actually 1960s, about preserving the character of this area, because this is the last free-flowing major river east of the Mississippi. And there used to be a site for potential hydroelectric dams, for example, and a number of people wanted to make sure that didn't happen. They wanted to make sure this river was continued to be free-flowing. And so there was interest in making it a scenic river. And in 1973, a study was done of the river, a very thin study, actually about 30 pages, that was intended to identify whether or not this was practical as a scenic river. And it identified a type of management plan, which would be what we call nodes of management by the Park Service, interspersed with large distances of private lands that would be kept in their more or less their rural character through zoning. This was not a new concept. It had been done in the St. Croix River, for example, in Minnesota many years ago. And at the time this was proposed, there was some controversy about it, but it was accepted as something that was going to be studied. And in fact, later on, a couple years later, it was studied in depth. But in the meantime, I happen to be county planner in Wayne County, and I am a consulting planner these days. I represented at one time or another every one of the municipalities along this river, and I've done work for the various counties as well, and including one of the states. The work that I did as a county planner back in 1973 through 75 was a time when we were trying to figure out what this was all about. So the various county planners, including myself, we organized an ad hoc group called the Upper Delaware Clearinghouse. Kind of a crazy name, but we came up with it as a way just to share information with one another about this unusual thing that was about to happen. And it was probably one of the first instances we had regionally of working together across state lines. So we had the county planners, and we started inviting in other people such as local landowners, local planners. We had people representing the canoeing industry, which was very big at that time. And we got together to talk about, well, how would we go about this? And we looked at the St. Croix River, and we saw that this nodal concept had been implemented there, and they had developed and published some guidelines, very simple guidelines for land and water use. And so we took a look at those, and we said, well, let's see if we can't do the same thing here on our own before the Park Service even comes to town. So that's what happened. We got together and put together a set of guidelines prior to the Park Service coming to town, as I said. And we actually had public meetings on them up and down the river from Hancock all the way down to Port Jervis. And we gathered input and we revised them. And we had those ready in 1975 when the Park Service actually came to town to do its full-scale study. So we had a jump start on it. When the Park Service came to town about 1978, they were following up on the study that had been done in 76 or so, and they immediately put together a team to work together to develop a full-scale management plan for the river, which included land and water use guidelines. So I was invited to be part of that, as were a number of other people that were involved in the clearinghouse. And we put together a committee again, a slightly different committee, and we updated the guidelines. We made them a little bit more specific. We adjusted a few things here and there, and we put them out for public comment. And generally, they were accepted. Unfortunately, what happened when we completed that second set of guidelines was that the Park Service got a little ahead of its game, and they were the head of the team, and they started going out and trying to sell the guidelines to municipalities before it was time, and that's my opinion. And it caused a huge uproar, and what happened was we had 800 people coming to one public meeting, as I recall, who were very upset, and in particular about certain aspects of the guidelines. So what we had to do was to go back to the drawing board, and by that I mean that the local folks got together and formed their own organization called the Council of Upper Delaware Towns, and they hired a totally different consulting team to prepare a new management plan to replace the one the Park Service had developed and new guidelines. And oddly enough, they hired me to help with that as well. So what happened was that we took the same guidelines and we went through them and we came up with a different approach. That approach was to detail certain goals and objectives, and then to offer these guidelines as various alternatives to meeting those objectives and those goals. And it worked out very well. It took a long time, it was tough going, but I'm glad it was tough going. As one of the other former supervisors in the Valley said, if we hadn't had that opposition, we would have never come to the good set of guidelines that I think we have, that are very workable and are respected by the local officials, and they've worked out very well, I think, on the whole. The Upper Delaware Council, which was formed out of the River Management Plan to specifically continue this local input into the process and to make sure management was a partnership with the Park Service and not a Park Service imposition, essentially took over that job of administering these guidelines. And as a result, they were generally accepted. And what we have today is an adopted river management plan, adopted guidelines that were done, as I said, more than 30 years ago. But they are, I think, very accepted by most of the municipalities, and they are a true public-private partnership that came as a result of a lot of controversy. So controversy can be good, and that's how the guidelines were born. The guidelines are very flexible. They allow a lot of different things. There are very specific objectives that have to be met, but there are alternatives for meeting those objectives. And what the Upper Delaware Council is doing today is trying to take those guidelines and make them more understandable, therefore more enforceable by common consent. And what they've done is put together an excellent workbook, guidebook, call it what you wish, which allows people to understand the guidelines. It's very graphically well done, very digestible for somebody trying to understand things. And they are doing this video to try to explain what this is all about. What it's about is a partnership that preserves this river valley so that we don't see something on top of that ridge line, and we get the same kind of character we see right now, which is largely wooded but not completely. It also allows for settlement areas where economic development can take place, and it provides many choices for people to implement these goals and objectives that we've adopted. So the Upper Delaware Council, I think, is on a roll here with respect to making sure that these guidelines are well understood, that they are easily used by municipalities, and they avoid what was originally the idea, long before that 1973 study I talked about. The scenic river at that time was thought about as something that would be condemned. You know, you'd have 75,000 acres of land that would be condemned and preserved. Well, that wasn't feasible, and what we came up with was an alternative, and that alternative only allows condemnation where there's not substantial conformance with these guidelines and something is truly threatened. What that means in practicality is these guidelines, this plan, depends upon a mutual relationship with the local officials. The local officials have to buy into it, and in fact they have. And that's the beauty of these guidelines.
Upper Delaware Council was established with the concept of collaboration at the forefront, working together with units of local, state, and federal government for solutions to activities impacting the Delaware River is at our organization's core. The substantial conformance review process is an integral aspect of this partnership. We strive to work with municipalities to guide them through this process. Our Project Review Workbook 2.0 is designed with the municipality in mind to simplify and clarify the process for all involved. We hope you'll take the time to familiarize yourself and your boards with the workbook and its forms, and let the UDC staff know how we can help. We hope we can continue to work together to promote a thoughtful and thorough planning process so that our beloved river, environment, and communities are able to be conserved and enjoyed for generations to come.